The idea of change your identity is everywhere right now. You can hear it in self improvement, you can hear it in conversations about manifestation, you can even hear it in business. But when you really look closely at what people mean, it is not always transformation. A lot of time, it looks like copy how successful people behave, adopt a certain lifestyle, or they mean that you fit into a version of success that already exists. And slowly, identity stops being something real and starts becoming a costume, something you wear to get access or to get results. And at first, this can look like it is working, but over time, it can create pressure. You feel like you have to maintain an image, and that creates inauthenticity because you're not fully rooted in what you're doing. And then it creates inconsistency because you cannot stay committed to something that does not truly feel like you. And the truth is, deep down, you know when something isn't truly you. So I started thinking about it differently. Identity is not a costume. It is not something you put on and put off depending on what it is you want to achieve. No, identity is the base. It's the base of who you are. And when you understand it that way, things start becoming clearer because then you can separate three things: identity, character, and habits. Your identity is the root, the core of you, the one experiencing your life. Your character is how that identity show up. Are you disciplined? Are you patient? Are you an intentional person? Your habits are the little things that you do on a regular basis, the things you do every day. They are the things that support your character. So when people say change your identity, what are you really changing? Because you cannot replace a root now, can you? You cultivate it, you develop it, you refine it, you allow it to grow into a more complete version of itself. Now, when I say cultivate your identity, I do not mean that you stay the same. I mean that you understand that identity has layers. As a human being, we all carry different sides within us, right? There is order and there is chaos. There is strength and there is softness. There is discipline and there is freedom as well. And growth is not about choosing one and killing the other. It's about learning how to work with what you already carry within you, to activate what is dormant, to balance the extremes, to refine what is raw. So for something like stubbornness does not have to be removed completely. It can be cultivated into resilience. Another example is sensitivity. You do not have to look at sensitivity as a weakness in your life. It can become emotional intelligence, depth, awareness. So you see that you're not importing traits from somewhere outside of you. What you're doing is developing what already exists within you. And that growth, or that is what makes growth real, because it is coming from you and not coming from something that you are trying to imitate. Now, when it comes to manifestation, I do not think the idea itself is the problem. Speaking, believing, envisioning, all of those have their place. But what I've noticed is this: a lot of it is not grounded in alignment. It becomes words without embodiment. And words without embodiment does not transform you. It just comforts you, right? You can say, I am this and I am that all day, but if your actions, your habits, your environment does not align with the things you're saying, nothing is really changing. And then it turns into something else: performance. Act as if. But acting as if without self understanding is just acting. And over time, you can feel that disconnect because what you're building or what you're doing doesn't feel fully true. And I think a good way to recognize that is this: if you constantly have to remind yourself who you are, it might be because you're trying to be someone you're not. So if it is not about changing your identity, then what does real growth actually look like? It comes down to a process for me. It is not something complicated, but it is something honest. First, self recognition. You have to be willing to ask yourself, who am I really? Not who I think I am or who I've been told to become, but what is really there? What are my strengths? What are my tendencies? What even are my contradictions? Because you cannot really build something true, meaningful, real, without first acknowledging fully what is there. Second, cultivation. Now that you see yourself, you begin to refine your character. You take what's already within you and you develop it with intention. All right. You become more disciplined. You become more aware. You become more structured where it is needed. And this does not happen by force. It happens by working with yourself. Third, alignment. This is where your life starts to adjust. Your environment, the kind of work you do, the kind of people you keep, the kind of lifestyle you choose. Because when you start to cultivate yourself properly, certain things will no longer fit in your life and others will start to make more sense. And then finally, number fourth, expression. This is the stage where your life begins to reflect the person you've been becoming. Not forced, not performed, but expressed. And the most important part of all of this is the fact that you don't have to wait to become someone else. You start from who you are. Now, when you start to see growth this way, your idea of success begins to change. You begin to know that success is not something that you attach to your identity, it is something that comes out of it. Success for me is a circumstance. It is a circumstance of what is cultivated within you. It is a result, not who you are. So things like money, that's an outcome. Status, that's also an outcome. It is not your identity. It is not your identity. I'm serious about this because I feel like a lot of times people confuse them for the other. It is not. I think this is actually where a lot of confusion happens. People try to become an outcome instead of understanding what produces it. So take for instance that I become a millionaire through what I have built. That is a circumstance. It is not my identity. And when you separate those two things, it removes a lot of pressure because you're no longer trying to force yourself into fitting a title. Instead, you focus on becoming a version of yourself or becoming someone who can naturally produce certain results. And that shift changes how you move completely. And when you begin to understand success this way, you will also begin to see that life itself is not one thing. It's not just money, it's not just status, it's layered. First, your financial life. This is your ability to sustain yourself, the ability to create stability, and eventually freedom. It is not just having money for the sake of it, but having money that can support the life you're building, the choices you can make, the environment you can access. Because if this area of life is neglected, everything else can be affected. Next, your intellectual life, how you think, how you process the world. This is your ability to understand things deeply, to reason, to see clearly. Because your life will always move in the direction of your thinking. And if your thinking is limited, your life will begin to reflect that. Next is the emotional life, how you handle yourself internally. This is your ability to keep steady, to regulate your emotions, to not be controlled by every feeling. Because you can have everything externally and still feel unsettled within. Then there is a relational life. These are the people around you, your friendships, your family, the kind of connections you allow into your space. Because no matter how much you achieve, who you share your life with matters. It can shape or it shapes the experience of everything else in your life. And then there is the inner life. This can also be called the spiritual side of life. It is your sense of meaning. This is what holds you together, what keeps you grounded when things are uncertain. Your values, your beliefs, your sense of purpose. Because without this, it is easy to feel lost even when everything looks good on the outside. And this side or part of life is called or can be called the why of life. There is the aesthetic, also called the lifestyle. This is how you express yourself, how you dress, how you carry yourself, the kind of environment you build around yourself, the beauty and intention in how you live. Because life is not just meant for us to function within it. It's not just meant to be functional. It is meant to be experienced. And then there is a functional side of life, what you actually do for work, your contribution, how you engage with the world. Because in one way or another, we're all building something, we're all serving somewhere. And all these parts of life that I've just mentioned, they work together. Because if you only cultivate yourself for one outcome alone, for instance, money, you can gain wealth, but you will not feel complete. A full life requires full cultivation, not just in one area, but across who you are as a whole. And when you begin to see life this way, you will also begin to understand this, that there is no one way to live well. There is no one template to be successful. Two people can both be successful and look completely different. On one hand, we have Faye, who can be soft, dainty, and still build something powerful. On the other hand, we have Freya, who can be structured, creative, expressive, and still build something meaningful. They both don't have to become each other. They don't have to abandon themselves to arrive somewhere. They both can cultivate who they are and still reach different forms of success. And I think this is something we forget. Life does not need copies, it needs variety. Because if every one of us is trying to become the same version of success, we all will end up moving towards the same direction, competing for the same seat. And in doing that, we will ignore something more important, and that is where we actually belong. Listen to me. Your life is not meant to be a copy of what works for someone else. It is meant to be designed from who you are. And also, something else that becomes very clear to you when you really understand all of this is your place in life. Because in life, you cannot always be one thing. You cannot always be at the top. And you cannot always be learning from below. In different areas of life, you will be both a leader and a servant. There are stages of life where you're going to be in front, where you're going to carry responsibilities, where people are going to look up to you. And then there are going to be those other stages or place in life where you're going to still be learning, where you're going to be shaped, where you are going to be stretched. And neither of these positions make you less or more. They are all part of a full life. Because growth requires humility and it also requires ownership. So instead of trying to position yourself as one thing all the time, you can now begin to understand your role in each space you enter and you move accordingly. So when you leave this video, I don't want you to just think differently. I want you to move differently. And it can start with something very simple. A shift in the question you ask yourself. So instead of asking, who do I need to become in order for me to have the life I want, it changes into something else. Something like, what in me needs to be developed so that I can have the life I want? Because that question connects you back to yourself. It does not send you outside looking for someone to copy. It brings you back into yourself, into working with what you already have, into strengthening what is there, refining, developing what's already within you. And from that place, you can actually build something meaningful. So at the end of all of this, you don't build life by becoming someone else. You build it by cultivating yourself. And when life is built from who you are, it feels like home. It feels steady. It feels complete. It feels natural. But when life is built from someone you're trying to be, it is strenuous. And that is not success. Now come closer. If this video resonated with you, I'd actually like to know what part stood out. Not the whole video, just the part that made you stop and think. And if this is the kind of thinking you want more of, you can stay connected here. Like the video and leave a comment. Bye.